Hello and welcome to episode 59 of 10,000 Stitches podcast. A weekly, bi-weekly now, chit-chat all about the joys of small-scale knitting. My name is Andy and I like to knit small things, although I haven't been doing a lot of knitting lately. So yeah. So if you wanted to find me on the interwebs, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Ravelry as Purlbug, Purlbug. You can find my blog at thepurlbug.com, and then we have the 10,000 Stitches podcast group on Ravelry. If you're looking for links to patterns or anything that I mentioned today, or shops or anything like that, if you're watching this on the embedded video in the blog or the Ravelry thread, everything will be linked right below the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, in the description box below the video, there will be a link to the blog post, and then, like I said, everything will be right below there. I'm currently recording on Sunday, February 26th at about 9 o'clock in the morning, so you guys are getting me at my freshest and most caffeinated point of the day. It all goes downhill from here. But I wanted to take advantage of my good light before I had to get busy doing other things, which I'll talk about later. Anyway, so I'm recording on February 26th. This episode will go live on Tuesday, February 28th. I think that's all the administrative stuff. Sweet. So, it's going to be a pretty normal sort of episode today. I actually have notes. I have some notes for you guys. I know the last couple I've just been winging it, but I have notes. We'll talk about finished objects, works in progress, what's coming up next, Knitalong, question of the week, and chit chat. So pretty normal stuff. So yeah, let's get into it. Finished objects, I don't really have a finished object, except I know when I recorded last time, which was 2 weeks ago, I showed off my speckled space socks, which were nearly finished at that point, and I said that I was probably going to finish them and before I even posted that episode, which I did, and I think I even put in a finished picture of them in the last one, but just in case I didn't, I'll probably put up a picture of those in here now. But yeah, those are my only finished object. I've had a couple of false starts lately, which is why I don't have anything finished, even though it's been 2 weeks. So yeah, no finished objects. Let's move on to works in progress. I do have a half object, so that's at least something. I forget, this was maybe 3 weeks ago or so, I showed off the yarn, the Patton's Croy that I overdyed, and I was calling it my murder mystery yarn, where I had dyed it sort of a red ombre on one end and sort of a dark brown black ombre on the other end. So I have cast on those socks and I have one of them done. So this is what it looks like. This is the finished one. I put the red up at the top, and then it fades into this sort of really dark brown black color towards the toe. And I really love it. I had mentioned that I was going to do a cable down the back, so this is what the back looks like. It's just a really basic sort of braid cable. So it's, sort of a 3-stranded braid. Why won't you focus? Focus. There we go. So it's just a really basic 3-stranded braid. I did 8 repeats of that before the heel, so it was like 10 rows of 2x2 rib, 8 repeats of braid, so that's 48. So it's about just about a 60 row leg. And then I did sort of my normal heel flap, and then just a plain vanilla foot. I did do the heel flap in regular Patton's Croy flax. I don't remember if I mentioned that. So this was overdyed on Patton's Croy flax. And then I did have a little ball of it, just the plain yarn from like an earlier project, because I've used this yarn a lot, which is currently attached to something. So I do have this little ball of just the plain yarn that I used for the heel because I didn't want to interrupt sort of the color fade, because I think it would have been really like jarring had I done the heel and had I not done a contrasting heel. So yeah, just a contrasting heel, which I mean isn't too much of a contrast, but it does save the gradient. And then everything else about the foot was just my normal sort of vanilla foot. So yeah, so this one is done. This was knit 64 stitches on a 2.25 millimeter needle, which is a US size 1. This was one of those false starts that I mentioned that kind of set me back, because when I originally cast this on, I cast on 68 stitches because that's typically sort of what works for me, especially like, cables kind of pull things in. So I was like, let's do 68 stitches. I cast it on, and this Patton's Croy is a very thick sock yarn, like almost bordering on a sport weight yarn. And so I got through the leg, like I was to the point where I was going to start the heel, and I looked at it and I realized the leg was just way too loose. Like that extra 4 stitches was just way too much. So I ripped back the entire leg and then restarted with 64 stitches. And that seems to be the perfect amount of stitches to make this fit well. So yeah, this one is done. I finished this one, I don't know, a couple days ago, I think. And then I started the other one, and I'm currently working on the heel, which is what I meant by that's attached to something. So this one, again, has the leg done, and I'm working on my little heel flap right now. And yeah, they're not, I mean, obviously they're not going to be twins because the 2 balls of yarn are separate balls of yarn, but they do seem to be matching up, at least for the red part, pretty well. Like one is not, you know, crazy before the other. So I think they'll match as well as can be. They'll be, you know, sisters, not twins, but pretty close. And this is how much I had left after the first one. Just a little tiny ball. And then this is the ball that I'm working from for the second one. So you can see it's already starting to transition into that dark color, which is why the contrasting heel is so important. So yeah, I'm really enjoying these ones. I think they're going to make a really good, sturdy winter pair of socks, which I won't get much wear out of apparently this winter because it's been really nice here, but I'll talk about that later. So that's one work in progress. Another work in progress is the Wesley hat that I showed off last week. I'm not going to show that again this week because I've made, or not last week, sorry, 2 weeks ago. I've made pretty much literally no progress on it, so I'm not even going to bother showing it. I've just been so busy that I've gotten hardly any knitting done. So yeah. Okay, so another work in progress I have is and I think I showed these off before too, but they're different now. So these are a pair of socks that I'm making for Wesley. This is Regia, I think just Regia 4-ply. I forget what the colorway is, but it's just sort of this gray 4-ply. It's sort of this like barber pulley sort of yarn that's got some grays, a little bit of white, a little bit of like a dark blue, which when it knits up looks very uniform. But yeah, I think I had shown off that I had started these and I was using the skip rib pattern, which was working fine. I wasn't loving it. Like I really enjoyed the simple skip socks that I made for my little brother. I did not love the ribbed pattern so much. Like I would definitely do the simple skip socks again. The skip rib I would probably not do again, but I wound up ripping these back anyway. And that sort of relates to another fail that I had. But I wound up changing the pattern because, like I said, I wasn't loving it. And so I wound up going with this, I forget what it's called. It's like, I don't even remember what it's called. It's like a mock cable pattern, but I'll put the name of the pattern down here. But yeah, so it's this sort of mock cable pattern, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a very subtle sort of patterning. You're not gonna focus, are you? Focus. I don't know. Whatever. I'll probably try and take a picture and insert a picture here. It's just really frustrating. I don't know. I have plenty of light. I don't know why it's not focusing. And of course I didn't bring up the manual control. Whatever. So it's this, yeah, sort of mock cable pattern, and I'm not very far. I think I maybe just hit the point where I finished the gusset on it because like I said, I had done quite a bit and then I had to rip it back. So yeah, I'm about that far, not very far. These have just been kind of living at home because I don't know. Like I said, I haven't been getting a lot of knitting done, and I really wanted to get the murder mystery socks done, so these have sort of taken a back burner, but I really would like to get them done sooner rather than later so that Wesley can, sorry, I didn't mention it. These are for Wesley, and I would like him to be able to get some wear out of them, you know, before it gets too warm for him to wear wool socks. But these are a 68 stitch sock, being done again on US size 1s, 2.25 millimeter needles. And it's arranged such that the front of the sock, the like ribbed part, has 36 stitches, and then the back, the foot part has 32, because 64 stitches can sometimes be just a little bit too small, but I wanted to make sure that the ribbed part was the part that took up more stitches so that if it is just a little bit big, it pulls itself in a little bit, if that makes any sense at all. So yeah, these have just been on the back burner just because I wanted to get other things done, and hopefully by the next time I record, these will be finished. We'll see. At least I'll have one finished, hopefully. But yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the fail that led to those getting ripped back. So if you've been around for, I don't know if this is not just the first time you're here, you'll know that I've been trying to also make a bunch of like short socks for the summer. And I had 2 of them done, and I started the 3rd one. Like, my whole thing that I was doing was each time I cleared off my US size ones, I was going to knit a single short sock just using some leftovers. And so I finished the speckled space socks, and I cast on another one, again using the Shirsty Cat designs in the Drunken Rainbow colorway. And I was through the gusset on this one, working on the foot, and I decided, I was like, you know what? I should actually wear the pair that I had. So I had one that was made in this yarn, and then another that was made with the sort of Christmas yarn that I dyed up and made my Hermione's Everyday socks out of. So I was like, okay, let's actually wear these and make sure they fit properly before I make a bunch more socks using this recipe that I came up with. So I wore them to work one day as I was working on this one, and they had the same problem that short socks typically have when I wear them, which is that they weren't like high enough in the heel, and so they were getting sucked into my shoes. So that was really disappointing because, you know, otherwise they fit fine. They just were not quite like tall enough in the ankle. So at that point, I realized that this one that I was currently working on should not continue to be worked on because obviously it wasn't a good pattern. So I fronked this one and haven't restarted it yet. But yeah, basically what it taught me is that I think I need to add probably about 10 more rows, I think, to the leg on that. So I had been doing 10 rows of twisted rib and then 5 rows of leg before I started the heel flap. So I think now I will probably bump it up to 15 rows of rib and then 10 rows of leg, just to add on a little bit more. My row gauge is typically about 5 rows per centimeter, so that adds on about 2 centimeters, which is about 3/4 of an inch, which I think will be just enough to keep it from getting sucked into my shoes. About 25 rows of rib and leg before starting the heel is what I've been doing for Wesley's socks, and those seem to work pretty well for him, so I think that'll work fine for me. But that's why I had to rip back this one, is because I had also done a little bit shorter cuff on this one. And then when I realized that my socks weren't fitting properly, I realized that his probably weren't going to fit properly that way either. So I ripped it back and did a longer cuff and leg on his as well. So yeah, we live and we learn, right? And I'm going to get into this a little bit when I talk about my question of the week. But yeah, we live and we learn, and sometimes you just have to give up and just start over because it wasn't worth wasting this yarn, which I love so much, making a sock that obviously wasn't going to fit. Go figure. So yeah, that's what's going on right now. And then let's talk about really quickly what's coming up next, and then I'll take a break and get a drink of water and all that stuff. So what's coming up next is so I said I finished the speckled space socks, right? And so those are the last pair of socks I was working on to send to my little brother and his girlfriend's daughter. I'd made socks for all of them. And I'd made the little girl a pair of tube socks out of Knit Picks Felici in the dark side colorway. And but I wasn't quite sure about the sizing. So I sent, that's why I used the Felici, was because I had another yarn that I really wanted to use for her tube socks, but I wasn't sure about it. So I was like, okay, I'll do it with this other yarn and I'll save the really special yarn and we'll see if they fit. So I sent all those socks off to my little brother. He got them, they fit. So now I can make the tube socks for the little girl that I really wanted to make her, which is out of this like super fun speckled yarn that I dyed up over Christmas. And this is one that I just dyed up, basically just sprinkling Kool-Aid over the top of the pot. And so it's like got all these colors in it. It's got some really fun like purples and bright blues and bright oranges, and I think it'll knit up really fun. And so now that I know that the stitch count that I used for those tube socks was good, I will get this wound up and divide it up into a couple of smaller balls and make her a pair of tube socks out of this. So yeah, that will be like the last ones took me practically no time at all. So I will probably save this as maybe like a spring break project or something like that. And just, devote a couple of days to just banging them out and getting them mailed off. So yeah, this one I'm super excited about, especially because once I make her tube socks out of it, I'm going to use the other half of the skein, since those two socks only take 50 grams. I'm going to use the other half of the skein to make a short pair of socks for myself. So I'm super duper excited to do that. So that's one thing that's coming up next. Another thing that's coming up that, again, is not going to be for me. Actually, none of these things are going to be for me. is a pair of birthday socks for my mother. Her birthday is in mid-March, so really closing in on that. Pretty much as soon as I finish up my murder mystery socks, I need to get these socks cast on for her so that I can have them finished, hopefully, and get them in the mail, hopefully, before her birthday. But I'm going to be knitting her a pair of socks out of this yarn that she helped me dye up again over Christmas. And if you don't remember, if it's been a while, I had asked her, since I was doing all this dyeing at her place, I was like, well, what color yarn would you like? What color socks would you like? Because she gets a lot of socks from me. She almost has her own sock drawer of just handmade socks. And so she looked through her sock drawer and she said that the one color she didn't seem to have was yellow. So I dyed up this skein of yellow for her. It's showing up a little bit washed out on camera, but it's this really beautiful, deep golden yellow. Like, it's not orange, but it's a really deep yellow. Maybe if I hold it back here, it's actually a little bit more true if I hold it back here, but yeah, it's not showing up super well on camera, but it's beautiful and I love it and I'm super excited. And so I'm going to do the Mirkwood socks out of these, except I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to leave the cable on the foot because it's one of those patterns where the cable kind of runs down the side of the foot, or if I might move the cable to the back of the sock. I don't know. I'm going to have to see on that one. But yeah, the pattern I'm going to be following, at least for the cable, is the Mirkwood socks. So that's another thing coming up next. And then the last thing that I sort of have planned out is a pair of wrist warmer, hand warmer things. And this is a pattern that I totally fell in love with and I've been wanting to make for a little while now and I just need to do it. And it's called the Mary Warmers, I think. And it's this really beautiful sort of like ribbed pattern that like starts and like swirls around your arm. It's really nice. And so I think for that, I'm going to use this yarn, which again is another one that I dyed up over Christmas. This was my first attempt to dye black yarn using black food coloring. And as you can see, it's not exactly black and it's not exactly a solid color, but I think it will work really well for that pattern. I think, sort of the non-solidity of it will work really well. And it's showing up more, there we go. That actually is a little bit more true. It's darker overall than it's showing up on camera. Like this stuff is not as white as it is on camera. It's lighter, but it's not like white like it looks like. But yeah, these will be for, I think I'm going to send them off to my older brother's girlfriend, who I've actually never met, and I need to make sure that they are still a thing, not because I think they've broken up, but just because I haven't talked to my older brother in a while. He's very mysterious, does his own thing, but yeah, I wanted to send her something because I still haven't sent him his pair of socks that I made him, the business casuals, forever ago. So I was going to send something for her, and I thought maybe a nice pair of hand warmers because those aren't quite as finicky in size as socks tend to be. So yeah, that's the stuff that's coming up next. Lots of knitting for other people, not a lot of knitting for myself, which is okay because I have more stuff than I need, especially with how warm it's been here. I can't even wear most of my knit stuff anyway, so there's that. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pause and save, get a drink of water, all that stuff, and then we'll come back and talk about the knit-along and question of the week. Okay, something else I forgot to mention, but I had in my notes before we get to the knit-along stuff is Wesley and I recently got a new bookshelf for our living room area, which is out there. And I claimed a shelf on the new bookshelf for just my yarn. And we already had a bookshelf out there, and this second bookshelf is identical to the first one. We basically just bought the same one again, because we have a serious lack of storage in this apartment. And these bookshelves are really nice because it's like a 5-shelf bookshelf from Target. And the top 3 shelves are open, but the bottom 2 shelves are behind a set of doors. So it's really nice for us because it gives us just a little bit more storage that is sort of not out in the open, which again is what we're really lacking here. So yeah, so we went and bought another one because they were having a President's Day sale and it was like $30 off, $50 off. It was a good deal, and so we just went ahead and bought one. So anyway, so I've claimed one of the shelves as my own for my yarn, and I recorded a little like slow pan across, which I'll try and put in here. But yeah, it's not a very big shelf. It's maybe 8 inches, in height, but it's just enough to kind of shove all my yarn in there. Again, if you've been around for a little while, you know that the way that I was storing my yarn was in Ziploc bags in a duffel bag in our closet, which is that way. Which was great because it was out of the way and the duffel bag already needed to be stored and all of that. But it definitely, made it hard to get to my yarn. And especially as I've been dyeing more yarn myself, it's kind of fun to show it off. And so, it was kind of a bummer to keep it stashed away in the closet where no one could see it. So it's really nice to now have that shelf. We're in the process still of kind of reorganizing the bookshelf. So if we get that done before I post this, I'll try and put a better pan or photo of the bookshelves themselves. But yeah, they're kind of cheap, but they're what works for us right now. And it's so funny because, I put all my yarn in there. I basically emptied out the duffel bag and put all my yarn in there. And from the pan, the stuff starting on the left-hand side is all of my hand-dyed stuff. And then it moves into hand-dyed yarn, not from me, and then commercial yarn on the right side. But yeah, so, was putting all my yarn in there, and then Wesley took a look at it and he said, "You need more yarn." And I was like, let me go get my credit card. But, he was like, well, obviously you don't need more yarn, but if you're going to take up an entire shelf, you might as well really take up an entire shelf and, cram it full of yarn. So now that I have his blessing to get more yarn, I'm definitely going to be ordering more yarn probably today because, there's a website that has a sale going on and I want to catch that before it goes away. Anyway, so that's that. So let's talk about the Knitalong. I just checked in between recording the last segment and this segment, and so far we have 47 finished objects in our finished objects thread for the Cables or Something Blue Knitalong that is running through the end of this month. So it's actually ending at the end of the day on Tuesday when this video goes live. Realistically, I shut down the threads the morning of the next day. So I will close the threads whenever I wake up on March 1st, and then we will start into our next Knitalong for the year, which is yellow, or going with the same naming convention, it's Garter Stitch or Something Yellow, I guess. But yeah, so our next Knitalong is the color theme is yellow and the technique theme is garter stitch details. So I guess I will not be completely out of it because I will be knitting those yellow socks for my mom. But I'll talk more about the rules for that in a video that I'll record later in the week. Because since I'm recording bi-weekly now, I don't really want to wait 2 weeks to announce the winner. Of course, I always let the winner know as soon as I draw them, but I will record a video probably Wednesday or Thursday, just a short little thing, announcing the winner and also talking a little bit more about the rules, or just rehashing the rules for the next Knitalong. So it'll be episode 59 and a half or something. But I'll try and get that recorded, before the end of the week, just so that I don't fall too much behind. But I did want to show off the prize yarn because I'm super excited about it. I did already spoil it a little bit. I had posted a picture of this yarn in the chatter thread for the Knitalong. So, you might have already seen it, but I don't think I put a picture on Instagram or anything. So unless you were in that thread, you wouldn't have seen it. But this is our prize yarn. And again, it's a little bit washed out on camera, but basically the colorway name for this, you guys know I'm not big on colorway names, but if I were to name this colorway, it's the name of it is Color Wheel. And I'll put up a picture on screen. The reason I'm calling it Color Wheel is because when I had the yarn in the pot, I was trying to sort of make a color wheel with my dyes. So I had the red, the blue, and the yellow dyes, and I sort of did each one in overlapping thirds in an attempt to kind of create that color wheel where, you have the primary colors and then your secondary colors. So that is sort of, and the picture makes it look a lot better. Obviously it doesn't show up much on the finished yarn, but yeah, so then what we kind of wound up with was this sort of pastel, variegated, speckly rainbow. And I don't know why, again, this is showing up way brighter than it is in real life, but, and I'll try and put in a picture. I took a picture of this skein in sort of diffuse natural window light. So I'll try and put up those pictures as well while I'm talking so you can see more so what it really looks like. But I just think it is so beautiful. It's a lot of color, but it's not, the color is not super saturated. It's certainly, not neon like this one is. It's very, very toned down, very, chill colors. So I am super excited to see how this knits up for whoever wins it. But yeah, and I might have to make another skein for myself because I'm just so in love with it and it's just so pretty. But yeah, and I'm sure there'll be more to the prize. I just haven't been able to get my head wrapped around it yet, or plan that out. But I will, of course, there'll be more to it. This is likely not going to get mailed out until spring break, which is the week after next week for us, or after the current week if you're watching this when this episode goes up. So that gives me a little bit more time to have some thoughts about it. But yeah, that's the prize yarn. Super happy with it. So that's that for the knit-along. And then let's talk question of the week. So this has sort of been inspired, both by my own horrible mistakes over the past couple weeks, and also by some other things that I've seen on like Instagram, just comments I've seen on Instagram or heard in other podcasts. And so my question of the week is, like, what level of mistake will you just sort of tolerate and, be like, whatever, versus when do you decide, like, no, this project has to be frogged or, ripped back or restarted, whatever. For me personally, anything that affects the fit or function of something that I'm making, that means it has to be frogged, right? So again, with my murder mystery socks, when I realized they were too big, right, that they weren't going to fit properly, that was like, no, you have to be frogged. Same way, with Wesley socks or the short socks that I was making, when I realized that they were not going to function properly by staying on your heel, that means you get frogged. However, for me, purely aesthetic things, not worth it. If you remember way back to, I don't know, whenever it was last year that we were doing cables and I was making my Viking socks, I accidentally did a couple of crosses, the cable crosses in that pattern in the wrong direction. That kind of stuff, I'm like, whatever, I don't care. I'm not going to rip back. And that's basically how it goes for me, right? Like if it's a purely aesthetic thing, and especially if it's a purely aesthetic thing that no one but me is ever going to notice, don't care. I'm also the same way with like when I'm doing stripes. If I'm manually striping yarn, I don't care about jogs, right? My Crazy Zauberball socks, which are currently sitting on the floor because I wore them the other day, those I manually striped. I didn't try to make them jogless stripes because I just don't care. For me, stuff like that is nobody's ever going to notice it other than me. And even I don't notice it when I'm wearing them because they're on my feet. So for me, purely aesthetic things, don't care. Form and function, fit and function, I do care a lot. And that will warrant starting over. What is it for you? I know I'm probably, very lax about the, aesthetics. Are you someone who's more picky about that? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Like, a lot of people produce really beautiful stuff because they care a lot about the aesthetics. And I realize that my stuff sometimes is a little bit, not sloppier looking, but a little bit more handmade looking because I kind of just let the aesthetics go. And obviously, if I'm knitting a gift for someone, that will probably change, how I feel about it, because then it's more like, it's not just me looking at it, it's that person who's receiving it. And I obviously don't want that to, something to be wrong with that. But yeah, what do you guys think? Let me know. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for the knitting type stuff. So that's all you were here for. Thanks very much for hanging out with me, and I will see you again in 2 more weeks. Otherwise, I'm again going to pause, grab a drink of water, and then we'll do some chit chat stuff, which it will probably be, well, I say it will probably be short because I only have 5 things on my list, but it'll probably turn out to be longer than I think because those 5 things have sub things. So yeah, anyway, I'll be right back with chit chat. All right, chit chat stuff. So the past 2 weeks of my life can be summed up by I have been a busy bee at work, which is kind of what I had said when I recorded last and, explained why I was going to be going to a bi-weekly schedule for a while, is because work has just been like ramping up and up and up. And, I talked last time about, that 4 slices of pizza sort of thing, and I've definitely been doing better at like rearranging those slices. But yeah, work has just been crazy. And I'm trying to even think of like why it's been crazy. We've had TAs getting sick. We had a TA who had to kind of leave in a hurry because a family member was dying. And so he's been gone for the past 2 weeks. And so I didn't have to cover any of his labs, thankfully, but I did grade them all because I didn't want him to come back, and he's already taking classes and stuff that are hard, and he's already falling behind in his classes, and I didn't also want him to come back and be confronted with 2 weeks worth of grading for 3 different labs, which is just ridiculous. So I was doing that. I'm trying to think of what else I've even been doing. I've been trying to finish up a project that I actually started last semester that involves soldering a bunch of these like circuit boxes. I probably talked about it when I was doing it the first time. But, like an idiot, I just sort of let it go until now, and I need them this week. So luckily, last semester I had finished half of them. I had finished basically the bare minimum that we needed to get through the lab, because it's for a new lab that I wrote. And so, I still have those. So like, even if I can't get the rest done, we can still do the lab. It's not a big deal. But I really would like to have the other half of them done. And so, unfortunately, I need them by Wednesday at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's currently Sunday at 9:30 in the morning, and I'm not entirely sure that I'm going to get them done, but I'm going to make an honest attempt. I'm actually going to go up to work later today after I'm done recording this and eating lunch. I'm going to go up to work and make my best attempt to try and finish them, because even if they don't get finished, I want to know that I at least did my best and tried my hardest to get them done. So, yeah, that's been frustrating that the past me set current me up in such a horrible place. But I've been doing that. I've also I think I talked about this, I'm on the committee for hiring a new faculty member, mostly because this new person will be sharing my office, and so I want some, I get some say in who they are. So that has meant a lot of work, just like going through, I think like 40 plus applications. So we, went through and picked out kind of our top couple that we're going to phone interview. So then this week I have to set up phone interviews with a couple of them. Like, we're splitting the work equally among us. So this week I have to set up some phone interviews and then do the phone interviews at some point before, we meet again after spring break. So that's a little bit like scary, because, it's all fine and dandy to look at resumes and stuff, but it's like tougher to actually be conducting a phone interview, and I really don't enjoy talking on the phone. So yeah, that's going to be a little bit tough for me, but it's a good thing for me to do. So I've been busy doing that. What else have I been doing? Just stuff like that. Just busy doing all the things. And we had our first test in the class that I'm taking. I'm taking a probability class this semester. So we had our first test, not this past week, but the week before that, which I went into kind of not knowing what to expect, because I've been doing fine on the homework, and a lot of this stuff makes sense to me, because a lot of it's just math. So I thought the test went pretty well. I wound up getting a 94 out of 100, so I was pretty happy with that. And it was only one question that I lost points on, and it was a question that I knew I wasn't going to get entirely right, because it's like one of those counting questions, and I hate counting problems. But the question was like, okay, so you have 3 bowls, and each bowl has 5 balls in it, because apparently in probability they like putting balls in bowls. So you have 5 balls in 3 bowls. And like the first bowl has 4 red balls and 1 white ball. And then the second bowl has 3 red, 2 white. And then the third one has 2 red, 3 white. And so it wanted to know, given the probability given that you picked the first bowl, what's the probability that you get 2 red balls and 1 white ball if you just pick 3 balls out? And then it was saying, okay, so now let's say you don't know which bowl you pick. You pick one bowl at random, and then you randomly pick out 3 balls from that bowl. What's the probability you get 2 red, 1 white? So it's just like, I hate those problems. But because I was consistent with my wrong logic, I did okay on that problem. And then, got an A on the test, so go me. But, so that was that. And then I mentioned this before, but the weather here has been redonkulously great the past couple weeks. It's been really warm, sunshiny, lovely. I know it's obviously, I don't love when people are like, oh, the warm weather is obviously a sign of climate change, because climate change is like a long-term overall thing. Like, I'm not saying climate change doesn't exist. It's happening. But, you can't point to like one weirdly warm week or one weirdly warm month or even one weirdly warm year as like proof of climate change, because you'll always have those weird years. It's really the trend overall. The point being, I've been enjoying the nice weather because, while I enjoy winter and like the cold, I don't love being cold. And especially because I walk pretty much everywhere, I enjoy nicer weather. So I'm all for that. It was weird though, last night we got our first like hailstorm since we moved here. I hadn't realized that since Wesley and I moved here a year and a half ago, we hadn't gotten any hail. So we got a hailstorm last night, which was interesting because, the room that I'm recording in right now is our bedroom. And then on the other side of the apartment is, our living room and kitchen. So we have windows on one side and then windows on the opposite side of the building. And so on this side it was fine because the wind wasn't blowing into the windows, but on the other side the wind was blowing into the windows. And so it sounded like the end of the world on that side of the apartment with like the hail hitting the glass on the windows because we don't have screens in our windows. And then we have a door back there that also goes to like our little back porch area. And that door, again, doesn't have a screen door or anything. It's just the door that leads right to outside. And so it just sounded like the world was ending on that side of the apartment. I was like, I don't want to be here. Even though the hail was like teeny tiny little hail, but it was very noisy. So that was that. But otherwise it's been great weather. And because the weather's been so nice, so up in DC every year, they do, like, there's this big cherry blossom thing, right? So they have all the cherry blossom trees. And, when they are in peak bloom, it's like this big touristy thing. And we didn't go up last year, but this year I've decided I really, really want to go up. Like, it's something that I really, really want to see. I've been obsessed with cherry blossoms lately. Like, the background of my computer right now is cherry blossoms. I'm just obsessed with cherry blossoms. And partly because the flowering trees here in Richmond have also started blooming, because it's, we're south of DC, so it's a little bit warmer here even than it is there. So all the flowering trees here have started blooming, and so I'm like obsessed with it. And so I've decided I want to go up and see the cherry blossoms, which they're predicting are going to bloom earlier than usual this year because it's been so warm. So I've been like subscribed to the Facebook like cherry blossom watch page and everything. Like, I'm just completely obsessed with it. And obviously if we do go up there, I will try and maybe vlog it or take a bunch of pictures to show you guys, but I am going nuts over it. And to the point where I think I've mentioned that like I'm out of bare yarn to dye. Like, this skein that I dyed up as prize yarn was like my very last skein, which I mean is not entirely true because I also had this skein which I used when I was making my fireweeds socks. But the problem is that I ripped back those socks, and so this skein is still bare yarn that can be dyed, but because it's been knit with, like, obviously I wouldn't want to use it for like prize yarn or something, but I can still totally dye it up for myself. And I think I'm gonna wind this back up into a hank and try and dye up a cherry blossom colorway. I have this idea in my head for how it should look to dye up a cherry blossom colorway, and if it works, I will totally do it again as like a prize or something, like that. But yeah, super obsessed with cherry blossoms lately, and I am so excited to hopefully go see them when they're in bloom because it's just gonna be so pretty. Hey guys, future Andy here, and I'm just about to edit the podcast, but I wanted to really quick show you guys the yarn that I dyed. So I did wind up dyeing the cherry blossom yarn, and this is what it looks like. Also, I'm in my bathroom because I think I've mentioned this before, but when it's dark, this is the only place I have good, like, somewhat natural light. So this is what the yarn looks like. It is a pale sort of pink base, and then I don't know if you can see it where I have it. Kind of had to bunch it up so I could do this one-handed. But you can see there's little brighter pink speckles to kind of look like cherry blossoms. So it's probably showing up a little bit more saturated than it is in real life. In real life, it's a very nice sort of even pale pink. I mean, not even, it's definitely tonal. Like, there are definitely some spots that are lighter than others, but I am super excited about it. I doubt I will knit anything with it before I chat with you guys again, but I just wanted to show you guys it just in case I forgot by the next time I record. So yeah, that's that. And now back to the rest of the podcast. So yeah, that's that. And speaking of dyeing yarn, like I said, I'm gonna order some more bare yarn, so hopefully that process will begin soon. Also, this isn't really wasn't really question of the week material, but we've hit a couple of milestones lately, and I haven't quite figured out what I want to do for them, which is why I haven't really made like a big announcement or anything. But just recently, the YouTube channel hit 1,000 subscribers, or well, it bounces around 1,000. Like, some days it's 1,000, some days it's like 998, but the point is we've hit 1,000. And the Ravelry page just hit 400 members this past week. So, I mean, those are pretty nice round numbers, you know, good numbers to see. And so I want to do something for that. I just haven't quite decided what. Like, obviously I want to do some sort of a giveaway, and maybe I'll do, you know, the cherry blossom colorway as part of that when I get more yarn. But I also was thinking of maybe doing like a Q&A episode or something, because, you know, we're 59 episodes in, and I've been doing this for more than a year now, and like there's a lot of people who haven't necessarily been here since the beginning, or, you know, for those of you who have been here since the beginning, if it might have been a long time since the beginning. So I was thinking maybe about doing a Q&A episode. Let me know what you think about that just in general, if that's something that, you know, you would like to see. And if so, then I can obviously start the process, you know, for gathering questions for a Q&A episode. Just a thought on that. But yeah, that's basically been my life. I'm trying to think of what else. I know, you know, I talked about like the 4 slices of pizza thing when I recorded last, and I was talking about how my health slice was very small. And someone even commented and said like, you know, wow, that health slice looks really small. And part of it is, for me, the health stuff is only things that I'm doing purely for the sake of my health, right? So things like exercising, eating healthy, you know, stuff like that. Like, I don't count things like the fact that I walk to work every day, because that's just part of my life, right? I'm not doing that specifically for my health. It's just part of my life. But I have been, within the past couple weeks, been working on that health slice. And I think I mentioned this maybe last time when I recorded, but like, you know, I've been trying to eat a little bit healthier and just trying to do some stuff like that. So I've really been devoting a lot of like thought and energy to that in the past couple weeks, which obviously is not the same as like doing it, but you know, it's moving forward. The health slice is slowly becoming bigger. So yeah, that's that. But yeah, I feel like there was something else I wanted to talk about with that, but I don't remember what it is. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, so that's mostly that for the chit chat stuff. Like I said, my life's been super boring the past couple weeks. I've mostly just been trying to get work done, and then yeah, also trying to be healthier. So yeah, but I thought that I would go ahead and do a goals update, since when you guys see this, it will be the end of the month. And I mean, for me, it's practically the end of the month because there's only 2 more days. So I can pretty much talk about like my goals progress for the month of February. So if you're not curious about this stuff, if you were only hanging around for like the life chit chat stuff, that's it for that. So again, thank you very much. If you're curious about the goals, I can talk about that after I grab a really quick drink of water, because I've been keeping my water down here. And yes, I am wearing shorts today because it's nice and warm in our apartment. And also because I ripped the crotch on one of my favorite pairs of jeans, and all my other jeans are in the wash except for one pair of skinny jeans that are not very stretchy. And if you wear skinny jeans, you know how hard it is to sit cross-legged wearing a pair of skinny jeans. So I was like, I'll just leave on my shorts and put on my jeans before I leave later. But yeah, so goals for 2017. So to quickly rehash what my goals were for the year, I wanted to knit 25 projects in 2017. I wanted to read 25 books, watch 25 new movies, and save 25% of my take-home pay. So in terms of the knitting, I have 7 finished projects so far, or 7 finished objects so far for 2017. So I'm ahead of schedule, right? 25 for the year is roughly 2 a month, with 1 month that has 3. So I'm ahead on that one. I have 4 books that have been finished this year so far, although only one of those has been finished in February. Like, I got a little bit ahead in January, but I do have a couple that I'm working on currently that hopefully will be finished soon. One of which I thought I'd go ahead and show you guys. This is the one that I'm currently reading. I typically read books on my Kindle from the library, but this one is like a real book that I actually got from the library. But yeah, it's called The Man Who Touched His Own Heart, True Tales of Science, Surgery, and Mystery by Rob Dunn. And I'm not very far. You can kind of see, this is my little bookmark in here. So I'm not very far, but I've really been enjoying this one. I enjoy reading these sort of pop science / science history books, especially about medicine, because it's just very fascinating to me. And this one's pretty well written. The book that I finished before this was Packing for Mars by Mary Roach, which I think I talked about when I last recorded, but that's another one that's very good. It's sort of about the history of like space travel and like that kind of stuff. Again, a very good book. So I really enjoy these kinds of books. And this one, while I'm not very far, that's mostly just because I haven't had a ton of time to read it. So far, I'm really liking it and I'm really enjoying the writing style. So yeah, 4 books finished this year. I watched 3 new movies in the past month alone. So I forget how many I'm at total for the movies, but I'm definitely ahead of my goal. In February, and then in the month of February, I saved 29% of my take-home pay. So that's higher than the 25%, so doing pretty well there. And something, I talked about this one a lot in January because I was doing that whole like uber frugal month thing and like really trying to save money. And so in February, I've been doing a little bit differently. Instead of just trying to, in general, not spend any money, which is basically what I was doing in January. And I didn't enjoy it very much. Obviously, right, anytime you're trying to change a habit, it's not necessarily fun. But I just found it to be it just made me very anxious the way that I was doing it in January because there's no boundaries on it other than just like you shouldn't be spending money. So every time I would spend money on something, I felt really guilty, even though, obviously like I don't think I should be going out for like Starbucks every day, but there are those days when you kind of just need it, and the problem is those personal finance bloggers will be like, oh, treating yourself is never okay, right? You don't need anything. You don't need to treat yourself, like blah, blah. And I agree with that to a point, but I also agree with the fact that I would rather not like live in this like constant state of guilt. So anyway, so the month of February, what I've been doing is I've been going back to actually something that I did when I was in grad school, which was this whole principle of like pay yourself first. And this is something that I started in grad school because one, I was super poor because I wasn't making any money. I wasn't making very much money because I was a grad student. I was making barely enough to, cover my expenses and feed myself and, be able to drive back and forth to Minneapolis every couple of weeks to see Wesley when he was not there. And then, put a tiny bit of money in savings. Like I basically at that time made half of what I make now. And so, and I only got paid once a month, which was really not good. Like anyone who gets paid monthly knows that it sucks because, you have to make sure that you make that money stretch the entire month versus when you get paid, like bi-weekly or bi-monthly like I do, you only have to make it till the next paycheck. So when I was in grad school, I actually opened up 2 separate checking accounts and then I had a savings account. And one checking account was entirely for money to pay my bills. So right when I would get paid, I would immediately transfer over all the money that I needed to pay rent and to pay my bills for the month because I knew how much that was going to be. I would immediately transfer that over to the other checking account. And then I would transfer whatever I hoped, to save into my savings account. So basically I transferred all the money out of my main checking account right away. And then whatever was left in my main checking account, that's what I used to buy groceries, to buy gas, to treat myself, to do whatever with. But basically, the nice thing is that I knew that the money that was left in the main account, I could spend because I'd already made sure I could pay my rent and I'd already made sure that I put money in savings. So if I spent all the money in my main account, then that meant that I was eating rice and beans for the rest of the month, right? Like I wasn't going to miss my rent payment or something. And so that became very, helpful to me because it really helped me to manage my money because I'm just not one of those people who can just leave all my money in the same account and just, somehow magically not spend it all. I'm just not that person. But that was what I was trying to do last month. And it's even what I've sort of been trying to do since we moved here off and on is I've been trying to do this thing where it's like, oh, well, I'll transfer whatever's left at the end of the paycheck over to savings. And that just doesn't work for me. And I finally realized that, no, I need to go back to that whole paying myself first. And I had been doing that to a point where like I would still transfer like the money that I needed for rent and stuff. But I realized that, if I want to save a certain amount of my paycheck, I need to just transfer it right away. Like I need to get that money out of there so there's no temptation to spend it. And so I've been doing that. Like as soon as I get paid, the money's in my account, I transfer whatever I need for my bills and then I transfer whatever I want to save into my savings account. And then I know whatever's left in the main account, again, gets used to buy us groceries, gets used to buy us gas, and I can just use it for whatever else, right? So if we want to eat out and there's still money in the main account, then we can do that. Or, you know, if I want to go buy a new pair of shoes, or if I need to go buy a new pair of shoes like I do right now, I can go do that. And I don't have to feel guilty about it because I've already paid myself by putting the money in savings. So that I think is definitely more so what I'm going to be doing long term, because it just works better. It keeps me from feeling so guilty. And it just makes my life easier. And it means that I can treat myself more because I've already made sure that I've, you know, done all the responsible adult things that need to be done. And now I can do all the fun things that I want to do. So yeah, that's been that. That was probably a little bit long-winded and probably not something that people really cared that much about. But, you know, in the sake of transparency, I thought I would go ahead and talk about it since I had talked so much last month about what I was doing. And now I'm basically kind of doing a 180. I mean, not really. Like, I'm still obviously trying to save money and all that. But in terms of my mindset about it, I'm doing kind of a 180. And it's, you know, going from, you know, you can't spend any money at all to whatever is there, you can spend that however you want, right? Yeah, it's working a lot better for me. So, yeah. But I think that's going to be it. I have been rambling for long enough. And it's now getting to the point where I should probably get some pants put on and go to campus and work on those stupid little boxes, which I'm not excited about. But yeah, thanks very much for hanging out with me. And I guess I'll see you guys in another 2 weeks. Although it won't be 2 weeks because I'll have that little mini video up. But yeah, I'll see you guys for another sit down chit chat in another 2 weeks. Bye.